Mark Spitz, the former US Olympic champion. Of course, our very special thanks to Mr. Mark Spitz, the former US Olympic champion, for taking time off your busy schedule to be with us here today, especially for the athletes who have been eagerly awaiting your arrival here, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give one more round of applause for the former Mr. Mark Spitz. Mr. Mark Andrew Spitz is 64 years young. You can't tell by looking at him, can you? Born on the 10th of February 1950, he is an American former swimmer and 9-time Olympic champion and former world record holder.
When I asked you the question the first time, normally in the audience I get about 15% of the people that raise their hand. And the way I asked the question the second time, the rest of you had to have raised your hand. Because if you didn't raise your hand that you did have $100 bills, and the way I asked the question the second time, you would have had to have raised your hand because you didn't agree with that. I mean, I actually gave you an excuse to raise your hand and you didn't. Yet, even though I repeated the question again, only about 40% of you raised your hand that you had $100. And when I asked the question the second way, why didn't the rest of you raise your hand? You didn't. So in this group, those that didn't raise your hand are the people that probably sit around and say, you know, if I would have done this and I would have done that, I could have. And I know you could have answered the question right. Those are the people that have the most difficult time becoming successful. Not because you didn't have the ability to answer the question right, or the ability to have the actual courage and the strength to become a winner in whatever event it is. You refused to challenge yourself to be successful because you were more afraid of getting the answer wrong. You were more afraid of losing than the risk of actually having success. So you weren't in the moment. You weren't engaged. You weren't there. We'll put it another way. If I told you that there was a lottery, everybody knows what a lottery is, where if you buy a little ticket, you can win hundreds of millions of dollars. If I told you that today there's a drawing later on this evening for $1 billion, and all you have to do is buy a $1 ticket. How many people would buy a ticket? Raise your hand. Okay, see, half of you didn't raise your hand. Why do you think the people that didn't raise your hands, your odds got so much better by not buying the ticket? It's impossible to win unless you buy the ticket. So it's impossible to be successful if you're an athlete if you don't step up to the starting block and take the challenge to be a loser, I guess. Do you understand what I'm saying? Those that raise your hand have the greatest potential of success. And those that don't raise your hand, you have the greatest potential of failure. You see, it's not a question of whether you got the answer right. It's really a question of whether you raised your hand. Because unless you raise your hand, you'll never be successful. So I'm just going to ask you, can everybody, it's not even a question, can everybody just raise their hand for me right now? Just raise your hand. See, I know your hands work. Look at that. I mean, I'm so proud of you guys. So, you know, your takeaway when I leave is, if Mark Spitz said something that was anything that was meaningful is that I always should raise my hand to try to be successful. Let's do it one more time. Everybody raise their hand, trying to be successful. Another thing that I observed, because you're all looking at me, I've been doing this for now 30 some odd years. Those that do raise their hand, whether they're right or they're wrong, normally sit in the front of the audience. You see, you had a choice when you came here. These were not assigned seats. Those that are more in the front are willing to be engaged and willing to take the risk and willing to participate regardless of the consequences. It's human nature. Those that are more timid, afraid of their own abilities, usually want to hide and stand in the back. Now, I don't mean to actually, I mean, some of you may be in the back because you got here late because of traffic, and so you can't really be accounted for, but by and large, the observation for 30 years has always been that the ones that really want to be successful are literally in my face. And I want you to be in the coach's face. I want you to be in the mirror. When you get up in the morning and you look at yourself, and you're in the bathroom and you look at yourself trying to comb your hair, I mean, aren't you pretty close to the mirror? I mean, nobody does this from 15 feet back. So think of yourself as your athletic career is. To be successful, you have to be in front of the mirror. You have to act the part. You've got to be in the moment. You have to play the part.
Tanah air siang tadi bertuah apabila dipertemukan dengan perenang legenda Amerika Syarikat Mark Spitz pada sesi ramah mesra yang diadakan di Institut Sukan Negara ISN. Spitz adalah bekas pemenang pingat emas terbanyak Sukan Olimpik apabila meraih 7 pingat emas pada Tamasya 1972 di Munich. Bagaimanapun, rekod itu kemudiannya dipecahkan seorang lagi perenang Amerika, Michael Phelps, dengan 8 emas pada Sukan Olimpik Beijing. Selain berkongsi pengalaman serta motivasi, Spitz juga menitipkan cara untuk mengekalkan prestasi untuk jangka masa panjang. Antara atlet negara yang hadir, Pandilila Rinong, Hu Chailin, Diana Bong, Farah N. Abdul Hamid serta atlet sepak takraw dan bowling padang.